If you're moving to Alaska, there's going to be a lot of concerns that you have along the way, and I'm really sure you would really like the top 10 best tips I would have as someone who's living up here for moving up to Alaska. My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today we're going to be talking about those tips to really give you a good idea as to kind of the inside best practices, things you can do as you're moving to Alaska, because it is such a unique location that kind of feels like a part-time job, just figuring out kind of the best way to go ahead and do this. But let's go ahead and just jump into it. One of the big tips I would give you right off the bat is look past all of the clickbait out there and all of the reality TV shows. Yes, off-grid, remote living is up here, and it is something you can definitely do. It is not the norm, though, okay? It really does throw a lot of people for a loop where, they're expecting this really rugged, frontier-esque, which, I mean, it is the last frontier, but, also we're not living in log cabins and going and shooting a moose every day for, our sustenance. Like, it's kind of like a bunch of small towns in a small city in the middle of nowhere, okay? That's more of the energy you need to bring to it. You don't have to be like a rugged mountain man to make this work. Second tip I would give you as you are looking at moving to Alaska, identify what lifestyle it is that you want and what sacrifices you're willing to make that happen. If you are wanting that off-grid lifestyle, are you willing to make the sacrifice where you're probably only going to see like friends and family in the lower 48, maybe a couple times a year at the very most? Conversely, if you are wanting to find something that is just more kind of a metropolitan kind of a feel, maybe you're wanting to find something that's really close and convenient for where you work, are you willing to then make the sacrifice of having to drive a little bit further in order to find something that's a little bit more outdoorsy, as you're looking to define stuff to do in your pastime? So there's going to be trade-offs no matter what you do in your lifestyle. Just make sure that you have your lifestyle identified and you also know what sacrifices you're going to be making when you get up here. The third tip, and this is oh so important just in my work of helping people find their dream property, and that is identify what area it is that you want to live in. Okay, this is huge. Because if you're looking for somewhere to live and we find the absolute perfect house, but it's in an area you absolutely hate, then you're just going to have very bad tasting sour grapes afterwards. So just make sure that we are very clear on what area it is that you're looking at first, and then we start investigating the housing scene in that specific area. As soon as we have the area identified, like the rest of the process is just so much quicker, and we just laser focused, hone in on what it is that you're looking for. So yes, find the area first. The fourth tip I would give you as you're looking at moving to Alaska is, if at all possible, come and visit up here for, I'd say, about a week or so, and really visit the areas that you're looking and spend time in an Airbnb just to make sure that you really have a feel for the area it is that you're moving into. And if that sounds really expensive, it really pales in comparison to going through all the time and effort and the money it takes to move up here and then realizing it's not for you. So even though it might seem a little expensive, it's going to be really a lot cheaper than getting up here and realizing that you made a mistake and you need to move out. Fifth tip I would give you, and it kind of ties into what I just said, but make sure while you're here you do stay in an Airbnb. Now, why an Airbnb or short-term rental as opposed to a hotel? When you're in a hotel, you're going to be getting a very tourist-geared kind of an experience, and it's really not going to be the experience of actually living in a specific area. When you're in an Airbnb, you hear the traffic going by, you understand like planes are going to be coming in at this time of day. The kids are going to be going by on their snow machines, like usually around this time of day. And it really gives you a much better sense as to whether or not this is going to be a place you actually want to live. So make sure you do the Airbnbs. It'll give you a good sense as to whether or not this is going to be your flavor. Let's go ahead and take a break real quick. If you've been watching for any amount of time, you do know that I host a podcast in addition to this YouTube channel called the Alaskan Journey Podcast, where we talk with people who have recently moved up here to Alaska and give you a real good sense as to what it's like living here from people who actually, do full-time live up here. So do make sure you go check that out. And also, if you're looking for a relocation guide to help you get a sense as to whether or not Alaska is going to be a good place for you to live, do feel free to go ahead and register to my website. Link for that is in the description section down below. Just put relocation guide in the comments section so I know what to send you. Now, let's finish today's video. Point number 6, and that is consolidate down as much of your personal belongings as you conceivably can. And I know everyone's always like, oh, I got rid of as much as I could. I consolidated as much as I can. And without fail, people will go through the entire trip coming up the Alaskan or on the Ferry System. And they're like, holy cows, I could have consolidated down so much more. And that's always the advice I give people. And that's kind of the stories that usually will come out of it. No matter how much you consolidate down, you always wish that you had less when you're halfway across the Alaskan. Point number 7, if you were looking at getting your stuff up here, really there's about 3 options or a combination of all 3, of 1, 2, or all 3 of these. So the options are, number 1, drive the Alaskan. And this is by far the most affordable one because you're just getting a U-Haul or you've got a trailer, load your stuff up, and you drive on through to Alaska. It's going to be kind of a long road trip, and that's okay because it's pretty beautiful if you take your time. Like, it's absolutely not a brain drain. The second option is to take the ferry system, and this has become less dependable in recent years because the 2 vessels that the Alaska Marine Highway uses to go from Bellingham, Washington up to Alaska, where you can actually, drive to wherever it is that you're going, have been out either for crew shortages or they've had a lot of repairs and updates and upgrades that they've been needing to make to these vessels. So for that reason, I wouldn't lean too heavily on the ferry system. It's a little hit or miss right now if what you're wanting to do is make that voyage up from Washington up to Alaska to like Valdez, Ketchikan, wherever it is that you're getting off and then driving. Now, the third option is you can also just get a moving company, have them move it all for you. That's obviously the most expensive. Or you can put your stuff on a cargo vessel. I believe it's over in Washington where you can do that and just send it up here. That's another good option. Or you can pretty much sell everything and have the only stuff you have left is what fits into 2 checked bags and a carry-on and just come up that way. That's another option, obviously the easiest, at least as far as the logistics go. Probably not the easiest emotionally because we get attached to our stuff, but yeah, find a combination of all of those and that's going to be your best way to get up here. The 8th tip I would give you is really consider the time of year that you're going to be moving up here. Everybody wants to move during the summertime. That's when the roads are the most easy to drive on. That's when a lot of services are really going to be available and dependable. There's going to be some pros and cons either way. I'm going to talk as though you're driving the Alaskan, and during the wintertime, you're not really going to have any traffic, and that's really nice. Make sure you have some kind of sat phone or something with you, so if you break down, you're able to get a hold of somebody, because not the place I'd want to get stuck in and not be able to communicate. One of the big advantages to moving during the wintertime is you can move in and get settled, and by the time that all the snow melts, you're ready to have fun. Okay, you're ready to enjoy your first summertime in Alaska. If you move during the summertime, then you can do that. It's going to be a lot easier in a lot of ways, but you're going to spend like that first summer just stressed out, getting settled in, getting moved, making sure all your stuff shows up on time, and that's not great for anyone. So there's going to be trade-offs either way. Just make sure you kind of know what sacrifices it is that you're making. Another thing to also keep in mind is if you're moving up here before like that June, July timeframe, you will be able to go dip netting the following year, after you've lived here for an entire 12 months as a resident. And what dip netting is, this is essentially where you get to go harvest like 25 salmon if you're a single person, and then 10 extra salmon per member of your household. So, do the math. If you got a big family, that's a lot of salmon. And that's a lot of good meat that you can go acquire very fast up here in Alaska. And it is like, wild caught Alaskan salmon. So, absolute premium, top of the line. And you get a lot of it by dip netting. And if you're wanting to take advantage of that, within as soon as possible, then get here earlier in the year. So by the time the next year rolls around, you've got that 12 months residency established. If you show up in September, then you're going to have to wait, what is that, 18 months, something like that, instead of 12. So yeah, just another thing to keep in mind if you're so fishing inclined. All right, the 9th tip I would give you is make sure you've got lots of margin built into whatever plans it is that you are doing. And what I'm talking about is money And I'm talking about time. If you think it's going to take X amount of days to get here, build in an extra week just to be on the safe side. If you're looking at spending money to get up here, plan on it being about time and a half just to be on the safe side. And also make sure you budget about 3 to 6 months of living expenses after you've paid for all the moving stuff, just to be on the safe side. That if you get up here, something happens and you're not freaking out, stressed out of your mind, because you have a little bit of extra like savings you can fall back on if something does happen. All right, 10th tip. Last but not least, I would say be gracious with yourself and just accept that unless you are super chill and super organized, there's probably a good chance that you're going to be at least a little bit stressed as you're making this move. And that isn't a sign that you did something wrong. It is just par for the course. You're making one of the big moves that you can possibly make in North America, and hats off to you. And also, it's a little bit challenging than the average move. So be gracious with yourself and don't beat yourself up if it feels stressful or you miss something. Almost everybody does. So again, don't beat yourself up. So this has been my video talking about the tips I would give to people as they're looking at moving to Alaska. I hope it's been useful for you. Make sure you give this video a like, and we'll see you next time.